You're listening to The Seed, brought to you by Staley Credit Union and the Brecknitz Group of Raymond James.
Welcome to The Seed. I am Laura Richter, producer of this podcast, stepping out from behind the camera to sit in for our normal host, Julie Staley. I have a very kind of a fun podcast that we're doing today. In the last episode of The Seed, we talked about the recipe for success, how Staley Manufacturing used recipes to not only promote the products, but to also give back to the public. And as production manager for Spencer Films, I have been working extensively on our upcoming documentary, Fields of Gold, the A.E. Staley story. And as such, I have the privilege of spending time at the Staley Museum in Decatur. I've worked with the staff there. They're so wonderful. And they have just an amazing array of information available. So you need to be sure to visit the Staley Museum if you're in Central Illinois. And with that in mind, I have a special guest that I'd like to bring in, and her name is Erynn Burge. Erynn is the Assistant Director of the Staley Museum. Erynn, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you, Erynn. You and I have been working a lot from behind the scenes of our documentary, taking a look at all of the different assets that you have at the Staley Museum. So tell us a little bit about the museum before we get started into today's subject.
Sure. Well, the museum, I think, is a wonderful local icon for history. There's just so much that I think people can learn. Being a local native myself, coming in was eye-opening. I just did not expect the amount of history that I would learn about the area that I grew up in, just not even knowing. So I think that there are little gems that can be found that are unexpected and give natives and people from out of town, of course, a broader understanding of Decatur.
And when is the museum open to the public?
We're open Tuesday through Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m.
And what can they see when they go there?
Sure. So you can learn the basic story of how did soybeans come to Decatur, how Mr. Staley got his start. You can learn about the Staley family as well. We have a wonderful exhibit on lots of Staley family members, the connection to other local businesses like the Hieronymus Mueller Museum and the Mueller Company as well. And of course, just what was going on at the company throughout the year.
It's right. And, you know, I knew Mr. Staley for the fact that he put Decatur on the map as the soybean capital of the world. So the documentary that we're doing will tell his story, how he went from his farm in North Carolina to building this empire in Decatur. Yes. But not only that, what a lot of our viewers maybe do or don't know is that he was the founding father of the football team that became the Chicago Bears, which is, of course, what I knew about the Staley empire. But you actually have a room that's dedicated to sports and what
we do.
Yes. And that's fascinating in itself. But let's get started. And I have the website. It's, by the way, it's staleymuseum.com. You can go in there, you can visit, find out information. You've got a very extensive library that's online too.
Yes, we do. The Staley Journal and the Staley News, which the Staley News is a later publication. There's some crossover with the Staley Journal, but it's another excellent edition. I just started kind of delving into it a bit deeper this week, actually. And there's a lot of gems in there about, employee promotions, retirements, news going on at the company that's a little bit more focused in depth on the employees specifically and what they would have cared about. So it's an excellent one. And of course, the journal is always lovely because it goes back all the way to the beginning. And it's so fun to look back.
The journal was a publication that was published for the employees.
Yes.
So it carried news. And I know that it was created, I believe, in 1917. That's
our earliest edition that we have. Yes. And it started out specifically as a safety journal.
Okay.
So
Right.
it would have provided information on, how to keep yourself safe working in a plant, which at that time would have been very dangerous.
Right. And actually, that's really important as we talk about this subject, which we're calling today Food for Thought,
Yeah.
because the Staley Journal was the first place that Staley Manufacturing started publishing recipes.
Yes.
And I found that to be really fascinating. I love going back and reading some of the recipes that are over 100 years old that we're looking at. And that actually started in the Staley Journal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So the journal really had an evolution of starting in that safety realm of how to keep yourself safe, what to do, what not to do, and then shifted into, this publication for employees that had housekeeping, recipes, of course, all of these different assets. But yeah, the recipes are one of my favorite things because you can look and you can find sometimes the same recipe in years later and see the evolution as well of that recipe over time, what they shifted to using.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
And what a good time for us to be talking about recipes because we are entering the holiday season.
Yes.
We've got Thanksgiving and Christmas. And not only that, I spoke earlier about the Bears, but we're in football season.
Yeah.
And so, obviously recipes, if you're entertaining the troops or you want something, I think that everyone should go back and see what it was like to be able to cook in that era and how the products have changed.
Yes.
So are there any, you've looked at the journals extensively. Are there any favorite recipes that you've seen that you like or that you find unique?
I do. I love the pie recipes personally. I'm a big fan of pie.
Me too.
So in fact, my family in general just loves pie and we love to make a variety of pies. So I'm very excited in, every time I see a pie recipe and kind of comparing with what my family recipes are and what the Staley recipes are. And yeah, I think there was a chocolate pie recipe that I thought, I'm going to need to try this out because that's my sister's favorite. So I've been contemplating, do I bring it to Thanksgiving or Christmas? But yes, I'm a fan of their pie recipes. There are so many different kinds: lemon meringue, coconut cream pie, chocolate pie.
You bring up coconut cream pie. Something that I found very fascinating in research is that coconut cream pie was like one of the favorite recipes that came out of Staley Manufacturing. And what I love is that when Mr. Staley retired to Florida, he actually, if I'm not mistaken, shipped back coconuts to the plant, and the kitchen staff prepared coconut cream pies for all of the employees as a special. And it may have been over the holidays. Was it
I
around?
believe so. Yeah, I think it was around the holidays. Yes, the coconuts coconut cream pie is one of my favorite stories of Mr. Staley's love for this. I remember when I first started at the museum and I was accessioning, I was hired on as an archivist, and I saw this picture, old picture from, way back, of just a pile of coconuts. And I thought, why? Why is there a pile of coconuts here? Obviously, Accession did my research and I found out about the coconut pie love that Mr. Staley had.
Yes, and they shared that recipe for all the employees too. So so fun. I don't know offhand what journal that was in, but
I have to look.
It was in the 30s. So we will find that and we'll have to share it. And again, I want to mention, if you go to thestaleymuseum.com, you can find, actually do searches on your website, and it will bring up these type of articles. So you can go and you can search coconuts or coconut cream pie and see what comes up in those archives. So that's a lot of fun. And the one thing about the journal, as we mentioned, it was created as information, a safety manual or safety information to disperse to the employees, if you will. And that was really important. And that's the one thing in my research, is that I am so impressed with how much A.E. Staley focused on his employees' benefits. And as we said, safety. He really cared about them and their families. And one of the things that he started was the Staley Credit Union. And that was originally created as a benefit to his employees, which is fantastic. Also, the Staley Credit Union is one of our sponsors, and they support you at the museum. They support us over here at Spencer Films, and we appreciate it. And with that, we ask the question, what if you owned your bank? Join the Staley Credit Union, and you will. When you're a credit union member, profits come back to you, not investors. How? Think lower insurance rates on loans, higher dividends on savings, financial education, and unmatched member service. Become a member today. Visit StaleyCU.com. That is StaleyCU.com. This institution is not federally insured by Member Choice. It's proudly insured by American Share Insurance. And also, while we're talking about sponsors, we'd also like to mention that we do have partners that also support what we're doing with the museum and with this podcast, and that's Herald and Review. The Herald and Review, Erynn, has been so good to us in helping provide information, articles, and pictures of what has happened during the history of the Staley Manufacturing plant. We also want to thank First Mid Insurance Group, as well as McGuire, Uhas, Huffman, and Buckley CPA firm. So thank you to our partners and to our sponsors for that. And so we're talking recipes today, food for thought. Yeah. So Erynn, what happened is these recipes were published specifically for the employees for a number of years. And then things kind of changed in the plant as I believe the Staley Manufacturing grew its products, introduced soy products, etc. They decided to start publishing their recipes, actually creating cookbooks that were disseminated to the public, correct?
Yes, they did. So not only were they now sharing the information with their employees in this in-house publication, but they were sending these pamphlets out. Sometimes I think they would send them out, with products, or you'd buy your product and get a pamphlet, or you could purchase one for 10, 25 cents, something like that. And you'd have this whole slew of recipes. It would go through all the meals of the day, breakfast through dinner, dessert, etc. And they all featured some Staley product to utilize in that recipe. So there's a caveat usually in every recipe booklet that says make sure to use your Staley product to get the best results.
That's really great. It's actually a very smart tool to use to be able to market. And I know because of the time period, their focus was on women. And we talk about how important women, their roles with Staley Manufacturing, not only as consumers as we're talking about, but the employees that Mr. Staley hired to work in there. And he hired, and I'll let you talk about, a woman who really took the journal up to that next step and then helped him with promoting these recipes and products to the public. And who was that, Erynn?
So that was Ruth Cade. So she was the editor of the Staley Journal in kind of its prolific era. And she was fantastic. She did a lot of work to bring the Staley Journal into modern times for that period, I think, getting it into the hands of the women in the company, and so that they could read and kind of bring back what they were learning to the home, which I think, what better system to have than to give the journal to your employees, your female employees who are probably unmarried at that point or married and going home. And then outside of that, you have the publications that they can then read with these recipes, even more recipes and use of products. So it was kind of a streamline. Their mothers were reading the Staley Journal, their daughters were reading the Staley Journal. It was very much a generational hiring process at Staley's. So everyone was getting the benefit of these recipe booklets and Staley products.
And A. Staley was very in tuned to those women consumers as well as employees. And I know that the other thing that he did is when he was manufacturing his products, he really took time to look at the product itself and make sure that his products were colorful and stood out on the shelves and were very attractive to the consumers. And and I think Ruth probably played a big part in helping him with that.
Absolutely. I think she did. I think she absolutely would have had a hand in knowing, what the women of the time wanted to see on the shelves, what they wanted to see in terms of advertisement, and probably had quite a knowledge of how to get your consumer to trust you so that you would buy that product off the shelf. And so I think that she definitely had quite a hand in it. Staley also had quite a modern test kitchen. So they would have tested these products in, a kitchen that resembled your home kitchen, and would have, baked them into pies or into all sorts of foodstuffs so that you could hopefully really have tested the product out and can kind of confirm, yes, it does exactly what you need it to do.
That's amazing. And I know you at the Staley Museum have talked about this, and we even talked about it, is that at some point we want to get together, going to our own test kitchen and make these products. Because one of the things that I would be challenged is, first of all, I'm not the world's best cook. I'm not a domestic goddess. I will be the first to admit it, but I love recipes. I love, I have recipe books at home. And when I first found this treasure of recipes that you have at the museum, I thought, oh, this is so fantastic. But to be able to take myself back 100 years and see if I can create the wonderful home dishes that the women and the families of that time did would be a challenge. And I really, Erynn, I think we should do that. And then
I think we should. I want to. It's been a goal of mine. We have a kitchen at the museum. I think it would be an excellent use of it.
It would be. So if any of you in the local area, if you want to maybe come out and visit the museum, find Erynn, because you do give tours there, and ask her about these recipe books. And I'm sure she'd be able to share them with you, and you can get an insight into what these recipes are like. And then what we'll do, Erynn, is I think probably on our social media sites, we'll go ahead and we will publish some of these recipes so people can go to Staley Museum on Facebook, and let's get a few of those up. And the same thing here, we'll do it too with Spencer Films. We'll go ahead and we'll share those. So those of you that are, tuned into social media, we'll do that after the podcast. So let's get those up later this week, and we'll share some of those recipes, especially the coconut cream pie, because we love that. We love that. What we would love to do is we invite you, our listeners and viewers, to take a look at those recipes. We'll have a few up there, and maybe try them at home, and send us a message and let us know how they turned out, and if you found that there were any challenges of that time making those products. So, because I know that products have changed, I'm one of those people that I don't make my own pie crusts, but I love pies, so I'm going to give it a try. So, Erynn, I've seen some really cool cookbooks from like the 1930s era, and I believe there was a woman by the name of Grace File Gray that was a contributor to the cookbooks. Do you have a little information on her?
Yes. So Grace was known as a famous authority on foods. And what I think is fantastic is she was actually a former professor of home economics at Iowa State University. And you can still find some of her books online today. There's one on Barnes & Noble. You can find a few on Amazon. She was well known for her knowledge on canning and different methods of canning, as well as her authority on foods. So there's a specific Staley recipe booklet where she was pulled in as part of the Staley team to create these selected recipes, these specialty recipes. Included is coconut cream pie, of course.
Of course.
But there's all sorts: breakfast, lunch, dinner, hot breads, desserts, candies, and every single recipe utilizes that specific Staley ingredient, whether it's cornstarch or corn syrup. All of them. It references one of those recipes. And what I think is fantastic about that is it's only about 20 some pages long, but you could have a holiday menu just about for every single holiday of the year just from this one cookbooklet. It is really well done. It's got all sorts of different items and entrees in it, and it's fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I never thought about, you mentioned Staley syrup and you mentioned making candies. That's not something that I'm very good at. Yeah. I've even tried to make like stained glass cookies where you melt the candy and put it in. But that's fascinating. Yes, of course, consumers would have made candy in that time. So great. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
And as I said, I know there were a number of cookbooks that were published, especially in that 1930s, 1940s and on era. And there were even holiday-specific cookbooks.
Yes,
so
there were.
It's really fabulous. And again, the fact that not only did A.E. Staley give, to the consumers and to the community, but there are also organizations that supported what he did, what the manufacturing plant did, and basically supported Decatur. And one of those organizations is the Brecknick's Group of Raymond James. With the Brecknick's Group, you'll find a team of professionals with more than 250 years of combined experience, offering steadfast guidance for families, individuals, businesses, and institutional investors. Their powerhouse of experience is supported by the award-winning resources of Raymond James, one of the largest independent financial services firms in the country. For more, visit thebrecknicksgroup.com. Brecknick's Group of Raymond James, a financial future backed by strength and stability. As we talk about these recipe books and all of the things that Mr. Staley did, not only for his employees, but for the consumers, something I came across when I was in the museum with you is this special children's book that was published again for the public, not only promoting the Staley products, but it was promoting things for kids. And when I was a kid, we were very limited on things that could entertain us. We didn't have what the kids have today. And my grandmother would give me activity books. I absolutely love them. And I would, I loved to bake when I was a kid and make crafts and things like that. And Mr. Staley recognized that. So he not only reached out to his consumers, but he reached out to the entire family. And I know there's at least one activity book that he published. It covered the different seasons, if I'm not mistaken. I think the cover even had like Halloween and Christmas and things like that on it. And I believe it was a children's activity book. Is that correct?
Yes, it was known as the Children's Party Book, and it is
fun.
Adorable. Yes, indeed, it does have a whole bunch of the different holidays and seasons represented on the cover and inside. There are menus and decorations and party invitation recommendations for Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, of course, but also St. Patrick's Day and Easter and Valentine's Day. So it really included everything, and it was child-friendly ways to involve your kids while utilizing, of course, Staley products.
Of course, and that's so fun because, it's not only promoting the Staley products, reach out to children, but it's really promoting family time together.
Yes.
And I think that's important. And again, as I've learned about Mr. Staley, family was so very important to him, and he cared about the families of his employees as well. Yes. With everything that was done. So that's fabulous. Were there any other special publications that he printed in addition to these cookbooks and activity books?
There are some general publications about the company, the story throughout the year, of course. But they were constantly printing out a variety of publications, sometimes on the science of what they were doing at the company, right. Or just more recipe booklets, constantly updating as the products that they were creating were not just remade, but revamped to work better as technology improved over the years.
And I know too, he started out as a corn processor and then went into soybeans. And he being Mr. Staley, spent a lot of time promoting soybeans, encouraging local farmers to grow that product. And he also published a number of soy recipe books as well. I've seen those to really get that word out to the public of how important a soybean is, not only to the agricultural world, farming, processing, et cetera, but also as consumers, consuming these products and making these products. So I find that all fascinating. And again, I've learned so much about what Staley Manufacturing, what A.E. Staley brought into not only our community, but worldwide.
Right. Yes. These booklets aren't just educational to us, I think, now looking back in time, but I think they're educational in the way that we learn about that evolution of the soybean, of corn, just in the same way they would have been educational to the people reading them of their time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been so much fun. And I think next time you and I get together, we're going to go online and stream live making some of these recipes. And again, we'd like to hear from any of our our listeners and viewers out there, if you'd like to try any of these recipes, we'll be sharing those on social media. Go online and check them out, especially now during the holidays. What a great way to go in and try new holidays and challenge yourself to see if you are as good as a cook as the consumers were back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and so on. I think it would be really fun to do. Erynn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to the Staley Museum for really supporting us in the making of the documentary and for tolerating me when I come out and work with you and ask you for sometimes the impossible, but you're always there ready to deliver. So I want to wish you a very happy holiday to you and your husband and
you
to everyone
well.
over
Thank
there.
You.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Erynn, for being with us.
You're very welcome.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
It has.
Please join us for our next episode, which will air on Tuesday, December 6th. Julie will be back in the studio with some new topics to talk about. And again, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank our staff. We want to thank you for tuning in.